Hello, so I don't actually have that much to say in this introduction, but basically today we are going to be making 3 historically accurate Belle accessories from the 18th century. We've got a Bergere hat, shoes, and also a powder puff. This video leads on from my video last week, which was how to make historically accurate Belle stays, so go watch that if you haven't already. And with that, let's get on with the Bergere hat. So to start off with, you'll need an average straw hat. I got mine from Depop, or as my mum likes to call it, Bebop. And then use an unpicker to take off the top half of the hat. Once you've separated that, then unpick the very top step of the hat too, and then sew that down by hand to the rest of the hat. How many times can I say hat? By the way, I didn't make this method up. I think I saw Enchanted Rose Costumes do it first, but it's just so that you make the hat less tall, as that was just how they did it in the 18th century. And then you can start working on the trim, which is the most exciting part in my opinion. So I used the template as given in the American Duchess Guide to 18th Century Dressmaking. You just scale them up from the book onto paper and use them as the template. I'm using these pinking shears, which have a kind of more rounded edge, can you see, instead of the zigzag edge. And what I found is the best way is to take your guide, and then you need to fold this in half and then put the pattern on the half, so that you can do basically 2 in 1 instead of having to put it flat like this and then going round each edge. Yeah, I definitely found that that made the whole process a lot quicker, and obviously the pace of life right now is so fast that yeah, that joke wasn't going anywhere. So I cut out mostly gold trim for the hat in varying sizes, and then used an absolute ton of fray check to bind the edges, which by the way absolutely stank. Then I pleated up the trim, and to do this you just kind of push the fabric into the machine, let that take its course, and then fold a bit of the fabric towards you and do the same. This is all such instructional content. I'm so glad I decided to make this tutorial. But yes, I didn't iron the pleats to measure them beforehand, but you of course can do that, but again, time is of the essence. I also wanted to make some red roses from this crushed taffeta to go somewhere on the hat, so to do that I ripped some strips on the grain, which that sounds pretty badass, like, hey man, what are you doing? Oh, you know, I've got to rip some strips on the grain, dude. Cool dude. Anyways, so I did that, and then I ironed in the raw edges and folded the strips entirely in half, and then I sewed them down and used my trusty hot glue gun to secure as I folded them into vague rose shapes. Very professional indeed. I then made some red gathered up trim, which I would later use for my shoes. So I was fiddling around with some trims last night, trying to work out basically which one I like the best. We've got this one, which is the I watched Marie Antoinette once and want to be Madame du Barry. And then we've got this one, which is just the Loves Pasta trim. In other news, I've also worked out how I want my hat to be. So it's like this, with this little bald patch in the middle. I put a poll on Instagram seeing whether people thought I should cover this or just leave it, and people said leave it. And I'm also gonna, I think, put some lace underneath here so that you can see it peeking out from underneath, and the lace is the same colour as these roses. So in my last video, I didn't actually explain why I'm making a Belle costume. And the truth is, me and Belle just have a lot in common. Number 1 being that we both have brown hair. Also, if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm pretending to glue trim onto this hat because I should have filmed this clip at the time but forgot, so you done got fooled there. Secondly, we are both musically inclined. And thirdly, I was actually in an amateur performance of Beauty and the Beast when I was like 14, had a major crush on the guy who played Gaston, and the lyrics have really just stuck with me. And every last inch of me is covered with hair. Thank God my family's out. So now you know the real reason, and on with the tutorial, I guess. So after I'd glued on the trim, I put 2 gathering stitches in this super long piece of lace fabric, and then pulled it up so that it fit roughly around the inside bit of the hat, and then also glued that down as well. Then I made 2 long chin straps and glued those in as well, and of course it wouldn't be a Connie tutorial without dangling my hair in the way at all times. Who is she? And now, to be a proper 18th century lady, we're going to be making a powder puff. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, then you would have already seen these, but I made these powder puffs a while back and I wanted to create something similar for this Belle costume. So for this, you'll need your main body of fabric, a wooden stick. You can also use a wooden cooking spoon if you want, a marabou feather trim, and all of your decorations, which I made in the same way as for the trims for the hat, just on a smaller scale. You actually also need some stuffing, but evidently I forgot all about that. So what you'll need to do is use something round to trace it around and then cut out, and then use another smaller round object as well, so that you have two circular pieces of fabric, one larger and one smaller. Then either make or buy some ribbon to go twirling around the wooden stick, which I attach again with a hot glue gun. Put a gathering stitch around the outer edge of the big circle and then pull up the gathers until they match the circumference of the smaller circle and pin into place. Yes, circumference, get that maths GCSE in there. After that, I hand basted the two layers together, went over that by machine, and then flipped the entire thing inside out to begin stuffing. Then you can glue in the wooden stick to the little gap in the fabric that you have deliberately left for this purpose. Oh, I didn't tell you to do that. Well, sorry, I guess you'll just have to start all over again. Practice makes perfect though, right? And then you can get on with the trimmings. Stuffing, Anyway, so I glue the feather trim, i.e. the puff, onto the back, and then all of the other various trims go onto the front. And lastly, we'll go on to the shoes. For these, I would recommend looking for a court heel, or as I did, a heeled loafer. And if it has a buckle, that gets you all of the points. I got mine again from Depop for £6, including postage and packaging, which is amaze. Now, depending on what colour you want the shoes, you can either paint them or leave them as is, but I wanted mine gold, so I used my trusty Liquitex acrylic fabric medium and mixed this with both white and gold paint. The white is to act as a base, which you then paint the gold over, and this took quite a few layers, but I was watching one of the Fancy Style Fabrics lives whilst doing it, which lasts for 4 hours, so I was all set. And this is what they look like all painted. Wow! And then it was time to, guess what, trim them. And I used, guess what, my hot glue gun. How original, who would have thought? So I just thought I'd show you how I got this hair. So I just get this Ariana Grande ponytail and clip it in the top and then shove my hair over it, which is curly because I did rag curls overnight.